name is Jonathan Gordon, and I'm on the NAMI Santa Fe's Board of Directors. I'm also joined tonight by our Executive Director, Jessica Shover. NAMI is a nonprofit organization dedicated to advocacy, education, and public awareness of the impact of mental illness on individuals, families, and loved ones. Tonight, we're going to be hearing from Tony Dixon, who is the Executive Director of the Mountain Center since 2017, and he's been with them since 2005. Tony also serves on the International Adventure Therapy Committee representing the U.S. and as co-chair. Now, I'm going to bet not everybody in the audience tonight has heard of the Mountain Center. And tonight, we're going to provide you with a lot of information via Tony about all the services Mountain Center provides. And I hope we can actually convince some others out there that therapeutic services takes many forms, and it may not be through medication, and it may not be through other cognitive discussions as well. And Tony's going to be talking to you about services that Mountain Center has been providing for those suffering from PTSD, substance use disorders, as well as other life-changing events. Tony told me he's very proud of the fact that they provide 99% of their services to clients for no direct cost to them. And they've been able to double their size without losing their purpose or mission for providing services for our underserved population. Now, after Tony's talk, we'll have about 20 to 25 minutes for questions that you can ask either by raising your electronic hand, which is yellow, or by asking a question in the chat box. We're going to conclude at 7 o'clock. We may go a couple of minutes over depending on how things are going, but hopefully we'll conclude at 7 so we can stick to that schedule. I am pleased to welcome Tony Dixon. Tony, you're on.
All right. Good to see all of you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me to come and speak on behalf of the Mountain Center. As Jonathan had mentioned, I've been at the Mountain Center for quite some time. It's a place I love very much. I didn't know many years ago you could work in the outdoors and help people at the same time with therapeutic and other behavioral health needs. And just got really into it and drawn into it. And over the years, just found myself in different roles in the organization and have grown with the organization at the same time. But yeah, so it's a pleasure to be here. I did put a little presentation together. So I'm going to share my screen in a little bit, but in a nutshell, the Mountain Center, we're a behavioral health agency that provides a unique approach to many different ways to provide services. And as you'll see, our program has many different ways, and I'm going to talk about each one because it's really difficult to just kind of give an elevator speech on what we do, other than the best way to kind of think of it is that we take a humanistic approach, we meet people where they're at, and we love to work in community and create space where people feel safe enough to be themselves and explore who they are in those spaces, and hopefully learn from others as well. And we do work with a lot of people in recovery, but a lot of people come to us with all types of different backgrounds and needs. And so our staff are trained to meet people where they're at. That's like one of the #1 things that we do, and help guide their process of what they believe their treatment needs to be or their therapeutic process. And so I'm going to share my screen in a minute and go through a presentation. And at the end, yeah, I'll be able to answer any questions as best I can that you all may have. So let me just get to the screen real quick. Let's see. All right, and present. And how's that looking for folks? Good? Good. Okay. All right. Yeah, so once again, my name's Tony Dixon, and I'm the Executive Director of the Mountain Center. We have about 60 employees at the organization. And our mission is to, we promote wellness and personal discovery and social change through innovative learning experiences in nature, community, and cultural environments. There's a recent program camp we did with the Navajo Nation, Dene people came down to Suki at one of our properties, and we actually brought two groups together that had never been with each other and provide programming through our emergence program, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Our vision statement is to be a global leader in unique wellness and behavioral health approaches. So we have 5 main locations. Where I'm at currently, Tsuki is what we call our main office. Our therapeutic adventure programs here. Some of our counseling services staff are here, as well as our admin staff. We have a location Espanola, which houses our harm reduction program, our Del Norte counseling program, MAT services. We have a Santa Fe counseling services office. We have a place also in Santa Fe called the Urban Adventure Training Center. It has an indoor climbing gym. Our GSA program, which is our Genders, Sexuality, and Alliance Network program, has housed out of there. And then our transitional living program is in Peña Blanca, which is for women in recovery. A little bit of background, the Mountain Center started in 1979. It started as a wilderness therapy program. And as the years kind of went on in our relationship with the state and different contracts we had, you watch kind of the Mountain Center evolve into more community-based behavioral health approaches, which pretty much what you see today at the Mountain Center. We've primarily focused working with underserved and marginalized populations. Okay, our therapeutic adventure program, this is kind of comes from the wilderness therapy days. This program provides an array of services with many, many different groups. We do ropes courses, do backpacking trips, river trips, rock climbing, rappelling, and we work with a wide range of different agencies. So this program primarily is adjunctive. So like we'll work with youth who are incarcerated, youth who are on probation, youth in a hospital, a shelter, a recovery program. And we work with that agency and build and do sequential programming. So work with them throughout the year and build programming to fit the goals that they have. So whether it's treatment goals or other kind of goals that may be happening. So with like lockup facilities, we may build a program around just healthy unit life that helps them in their process of where they're at. But we work on cooperation, other kind of problem solving skills, and all of our programming, especially this one, we're really focusing on building resiliency. So helping people with skills and tools to overcome challenges in their life. And we use the ropes course or rock climbing or these adventure activities, and adventure to us can be mindfulness practices, could be art therapy. It doesn't always have to be climbing or anything like that, but we're taking those activities and somehow applying it back in their life. So if we're doing rock climbing, we use metaphor a lot. We try to link back, what does the rope, when they took a fall and the rope caught them when they were climbing, who might that be representing in their life, right? Who might that be in their recovery, in their path in recovery, that they can identify that could be there with them? Who was that person? Who were the people holding the ropes? What was that hold? Was the hold a good hold or a bad hold? Did you have to find another hold to go through your journey? So we use a lot of metaphor in the activities and specifically in this program, but you kind of find it throughout all the Mountain Center programming. All right, next, here's a picture of a recent camp we did with some youth. Our therapeutic adventure program. This is a teen adventure program that we just started just after in our actually the second year of COVID. We started doing these programs, doing open enrollment. A lot of kids weren't connecting; they were online a lot, and we were providing services just take kids outside that were open enrollment, which was a little new for us. All right, next program is the Emergence program. This is our Native American program. It is housed under the Therapeutic Adventure program. This program has Native staff, typically Native staff leading for sure, running culturally appropriate programming using experiential modalities, education modalities in tribes, in schools, in tribal schools. They'll either come to us or we go to them. And yeah, this program's been around for also a long time. Since 1995, we've been providing these types of services. So yeah, just a little bit of some text on the program. We've pretty much worked with all 19 pueblos at some point during its time. And it's taken different shapes and forms, the program, over the years. It's a picture. It was a program we did with Pewaukee Pueblo. Our Espanola office, it's just located across the street from where the college is. We actually just bought this building, this facility in last fall. And it's a program where we house our harm reduction program, which is syringe exchange services and naloxone distribution. It's a mobile program, so there you can see our van. And these are two staff that are posing, but we have a van. We go out in the community. We go as far north as Chama sometimes. We go into Taos. We go into Hernandez and all over the valley in Espanola. We go into Chimayo. And we do clean needles for used needles for intravenous drug users, and provide other kinds of services and access to services in the community or to our other services that we have in-house. A big part of this program now has moved away. We used to have, I think the most syringes we exchanged was like 4 years ago, it was about 2 million syringes in 1 year were exchanged. And it's now gone down to 500,000, I think, is the average now the last few years. And that's largely because of fentanyl, and people smoke fentanyl typically. And so we're still doing harm reduction. We're still engaging in the community, going to people's homes, meeting them where they're at, and providing any kind of services that they may need, naloxone, fentanyl, test strips. This program also now has a drug checking program where people can give us a substance, like a little bit of their substance, and we can tell them what's in it. We just recently had a couple cases where we had to do like a little campaign to educate the community. But and this is difficult to hear, but it's really what we're facing. It was like an insecticide that was in the substance, that it was pure insecticide. So harm reduction is a way to help people wherever they're at in their life and whatever that is that they're needing. But also it's an education, right? So like the harms associated with drug use, how do you reduce the harm, and educating people when it's possible. And drug checking is just another level that can also help with policy change, right? Because then when the community is more informed of what's going on around, policy change can happen quickly, as opposed to years later before anything takes place, right? We also, in this office, we offer medication assisted treatment. So 95% of our clients were once in the harm reduction program, getting syringe exchange services or naloxone, working in that side, and then became clients in our medication assisted treatment program. Not everyone in that program sees a counselor, but they have access to therapy if they would like it, or case management. Let's see. Next slide. All right, counseling services. We have two different types of counseling programs because we have two clinical directors. We have one that focuses on the north in Espanola, as well as out of Tesuque. And then we have another team and a clinical director that sees that team out of the Santa Fe office. The one up north that we call Del Norte also specifically specializes with certain things around families, but as well as LGBTQ populations. So anyone in our LGBTQ program, which I'll talk about in a minute, which is called our GSA program, they refer clients to that team if they have an LGBTQ client who would like LGBTQ affirming therapy. Let's see. This is a program that we started in probably around 2014 when we became eligible for Medicaid. It's when we first had our first therapist. It's been in quite a journey, and it's grown. It's a program that's grown. It started with 2 people, and now we're somewhere around 12 clinical therapists out of these 2 teams. And then we have therapists in other programs as well. Okay. So our transitional living program, this is one of the newer programs at the Mountain Center. In 2019, there was a program, and maybe you all have heard of this program. It's called Sangre de Cristo Houses in Peña Blanca. It's a residential treatment program for women in recovery. This program was having a little trouble with one, holding an executive director, and then their finances. They're just having a little trouble. And they reached out to us because we've been partnering with them a long time, and eventually, after another ED had left, they had asked me if I could help them out. I told them I could give them 3 months of a needs assessment, figure out what they need to do. Did that, and then COVID happened right away. And so we couldn't really take on the action steps of passing this program anywhere else. And so I kept helping them, figuring out what they needed to do. Long story short, we ended up taking over the program, which was their original intention, was to pass it on to us. And so now we have a residential program we're overseeing. It's been thriving under the Mountain Center. It's really cool to watch it grow. This program, the clients get about 14 hours of therapy, a little bit more, sometimes more, a week. They get therapeutic adventure programming as well. So they do about 2 to 3 days a week of nature-based activities. They do art therapy. An art therapist we have on staff does art therapy with them. They get mindfulness practices. They get equine therapy. We work with another agency to do that. And they get case management, relapse prevention. We just started getting someone to come down and do AA and NA groups on site. It's very difficult to move the clients. We have to move them a lot all over the place. So we finally got some folks to come out and do that weekly. Yeah, it's a really wonderful program. It's been a lot of work. For those of you who've worked or know what it's like to be a part of a residential program, it's an immense amount of work, and I have a wonderful team. I mean, all the Mountain Center programs, we have wonderful teams, but I'm really proud of where they've taken this program, because it was really going to close its doors, and it's been thriving under the leadership we have there now, and the team really cares about the client's outcomes. So it's 90 days. They can stay longer. Sometimes they stay 6 months. Clients come from all over the state, probation. We work with the corrections department quite a bit. And our main focus, is helping people get on their path in recovery. And so we've had that program now since 2001. Okay, New Mexico Genders and Sexuality Alliance Network. This one gets the prize of the longest titled program name at the Mountain Center. This is our program that supports LGBTQ populations, young adults and teens, youth. And we work in schools. They're kind of like the GSA clubs is what they used to be called, was Gay Straight Alliance. They changed the name to Genders and Sexuality Alliance. They're safe spaces in schools that are led by youth, typically by maybe an administrator who supports, an adult might support, but it's led by youth. We provide technical assistance for schools on how to set those up and run them, and support the youth in running them. This program also provides LGBTQ 101 trainings, referrals into therapy, as well as case management. And also does trainings just on suicide prevention. So question, persuade, refer. And they're a wonderful team. It's a wonderful program. This one, along with the harm reduction program that I spoke earlier, the core of the harm reduction program, they both started in 2005, which is around the time I showed up. There's our GSA team. They're wonderful, wonderful people. There's a couple missing, but that was a photo shoot we did a while back. Yeah, and it talks a little bit about kind of the target goals. We do go a little bit older than 24 now. We've targeted folks up to 26 and even work with adults if they're LGBTQ identifying and want services. Oh, okay. Trainings and professional development program. So we offer a lot of trainings. We do work with a lot of other behavioral health agencies to provide team building activities. Sometimes if we're working like, especially like a treatment program, we might bring all their clients out and have one team working with all their clients and then have all the staff come out so they can, because if all the clients are out of the facility, all the staff can come and they can have a team building day with us. And so we like to really work with behavioral health agencies and provide those. And then we also have open to the public trainings. This is a list of some of the things we do. So wilderness first responder, that's typically for people working in backcountry settings. We have NOLS, the National Outdoor Leadership School, usually comes down and provides that. Question, persuade, refer, suicide prevention training. We have a lot of staff certified to lead those trainings. As I mentioned, the Genders and Sexuality Alliance Network, that's one of their big deliverables. They do a lot of that. But we also have other staff who help in-house to train staff, but we offer it to the public. LGBTQ 101 trainings, those are open to the public. And then these other kind of counseling services, CEUs, trauma in the five senses, which is something we just did last month. Window of tolerance, which is a trauma-informed care training, harm reduction interventions. And then we have the team building activities. We have a training coming up. I don't know if we have clinicians here or people interested in this kind of a training, but we have one on working with addictions coming up. There's a QR code there. I'll have my email later. So if you are interested in this or want to get the flyer to send it to somebody, I can share that with you. This is a free training. It's funded by BHSD, the Behavioral Health Services Division, through the Healthcare Authority. All right, questions? How did I do on time? Yeah, non-elevator speech for sure.
No, you're doing great.
But yeah, I could take some questions or whatever if it feels right for you all at this time.
Tony, that was great. I was blown out the amount of services you guys offer. I mean, it's amazing how you can keep all that straight. And I think a lot of people are going to try to figure out, how do I get in touch? How do I learn if I can be a part of this and get help for myself or my loved one?
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot. I mean, you guys do a ton. It's just amazing. We have a question from Jackie Dougherty, who's on our board. Jackie's asked, does the transitional program for women accept women transitioning from, for example, a psychiatric facility, or is it only for substance use recovery?
It's a great question. It's primarily because of the way our contract is, it's substance use. So that has to be a primary disorder. I mean, we know we're going to be working with co-occurring, right? Like there's going to be other disorders involved. And we have had clients come from psychiatric facilities or from hospitals and been able to be admitted, but there are a lot of other things we have to check the boxes to make sure they're a fit because we don't have doctors on site. We do work with a prescribing psychologist, but he's very part-time, which was a game changer for us because it used to be very, very difficult. And he was a friend of the Mountain Centers and was like, hey, cool program. Can I help y'all? And we were like, great. And so he comes down on Sundays actually to meet with the clients, but it's a very small window of time. We got a prescriber to help with any kind of med management. But yeah, we make priority to, so we also can have, we have 2 rooms for mothers. You've probably seen some programs like that. So we've definitely facilitated, help people, with births. So pregnant, expecting mothers, and also for 0 to age 3. We have a couple rooms where we can have the baby with the mother or the child. Yeah. Cool. I think we
Thank you.
got, go ahead.
Oh, I was actually thanking you for answering the question. It sounds fabulous. I do have another question that's more of a clinical oriented question about overdose management. So my husband just had hip replacement surgery a month and a half ago, and they gave him some narcotics. And they gave us, it's either a Narcan, I don't know if it's a
Yep,
spray.
Narcan. Mhm.
Right. So I'm wondering but he decided he didn't want to take any of the medication after the first dose. So I'm wondering if this is something that would be good to carry in my car, for example, if I'm ever out, or if the hot weather or the cold weather might make it inoperable or ruin the material, the composition.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, in my experience, and I'm trying to think of all the harm reductionists that I've worked with in my life, it's like I've heard it. You wouldn't, you wouldn't have a fire extinguisher, right? Like always, it's like good to have those kinds of tools. They're there just in case. You don't always use it, but just if something happens, like an AED or if there's an emergency. And I've had plenty of stories because we distribute a bunch to first responders and also other agencies and train their staff on using naloxone. We've heard stories of people driving home and they see somebody overdosing and they're able to revive them. So I carry it personally. If I go on a flight, if I have it I always have it in my bag. So you should always have it. Anytime you have any opioids around too, it's just good to have a Narcan almost like connected to it. But that's my view is that everybody should really have it, regardless if they're dealing with anyone actively in addiction in their life, because you just never know. It's kind of everywhere. And then the being in your car, I don't really have any medication can be temperature sensitive. So you might want to be mindful of that. But I've heard people using naloxone or Narcan that was 25 years old and it's still working. So, I mean, it's kind of like it might have an expiration date, but use it if you got it type thing. And it can probably withstand quite a bit. But I'm not a chemist, so I can't answer that officially. I just, from what I've heard in the community.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful.
Yeah.
A question from Jessica. Can you tell us a little more about your counseling services? For example, do you provide counseling for the whole family?
Yeah. Yeah. Our counseling services, yeah, does individual, and we'll also work with the whole family. We have the capacity. It typically looks like, if the whole family's needing therapy, we make sure, each member gets a different therapist within our team. That way there's not like the mother seeing the same therapist that the father might be seeing. And one of the things we're always trying to do when the family's engaged in clinical work is to, outside of like your traditional style of therapy or like coming into the office, is to have them do adventure programming. So do a climbing day, because there's so many metaphoric transference that you can apply to having a family member climb and talking about trust, right? And so we're really striving to go in that direction. It's difficult when you have Medicaid deliverables and schedules and things, and then you got to like open up your schedule to make it a 3 hour to 4 hours to kind of get prepped and have everybody come to the facility and have staff available, because you can't just be a therapist alone. We have to do that together. But we do like to work with families. The transitional living program, we are now doing every quarter, we're striving to have a family day. And we just had our first one. It was amazing. It was like on a Saturday. And we were kind of concerned because not everyone's family can make it, but everyone took care of each other. The energy was just, even those who didn't have family members got so much out of that day. And then, of course, those who had their loved ones able to be there in that space, it was really powerful. And so we're going to continue doing that. Family's super important to involved in treatment.
Craig, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah.
What an impressive and worthy suite of programs you offer. That's really, really wonderful. I knew about the Mountain Center, but I had no idea all the different program offerings you have. I was just curious, Tony, about where you get your funding from.
Yeah. So a lot of state contracts, CYFD, Department of Health, Corrections Department, Behavioral Health Services Division. We have they're a mix of like either state general funds, like, kind of, not federal, and then some that are like SAMHSA contracts that are through the state to us. And then we have some foundations who fund us, like we were funded by Incorum for some of our programming. And then Medicaid is a big one.
Sure.
And then we have some other they're foundations, but they're more like they're foundations, but they have a very specific thing on what they're funding. It's very restricted, but it's very like once a year they always fund us. Couple for harm reduction, and then some for the Therapeutic Adventure Program, Lano Foundation, and then we have county contracts, Bernalillo County, Santa Fe County. We have several.
Yeah.
And they're all behavioral health focused.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then donations. We get donations from the public, like the board will fundraise and bring in revenue that way as well. But our biggest revenue is, through our contracts and Medicaid.
Yep. Thank you.
You're muted, Jonathan.
Sorry. You can't read my lips, huh? It's a question from Rebecca Pearson. Would you all ever consider moving to the southern part of the state?
Oof. I had this dream of going down the Rio Grande and having services go all, and then one day we can all raft down to all the programs. Right now we are, we've grown a lot, and we're just starting a 3-year strategic plan that we just wrapped up. And one of the biggest things is how much we've grown. And I've always been, because, I've been in different leadership roles in the organization, and change is good, and but change is hard. And so we've been trying to be really mindful in how we grow. And I've been setting up things to have positions, like we haven't had a human resource. I've been the human resources person for quite a while. And so we're bringing in like the right positions before we launch into anything more. So right now down south is not like, it's not in the plan. However, we do mobile services. So to say we don't work down in the south is false. We do go down there. We work at John Paul Taylor. We've worked with the probation officer. John Paul Taylor is a lockup facility for adolescents. And we've worked with the probation offices down there. And the Genders and Sexuality Alliance Network will actually go sometimes down there, work with youth, stay the night, and then come back. Or they do it online. So we do work with folks in the South. It's just, we're not set up there.
Okay. Tom, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I do, Tony. I was just curious, when you look across all your programs, what are the biggest issues you're seeing for your clients, say since COVID? Just sort of what are the top 3, the top 5, whatever things that people need help with when they come to you?
Yeah, every program is going to be a little different. Of course, for the harm reduction program, it's housing. And I would say for a lot of like counseling services for sure, but usually the counselors may have clients that are unhoused, but usually they don't, they got more pressing things. The client has more pressing things to deal with than therapy at the time. So sometimes they might engage a little bit, they might work with the case manager, but then we lose track of where they went or where they're at. So I'd say in general, we've been seeing housing quite a bit, especially up north. Not that we're not seeing it in Santa Fe, it's just up north. It's got quite a bit of a concern for some of the clients we're working with. And let's see, other kind of programs. I think access to care came to mind too, like appropriate access to care. You know, we can only do so much. We can only provide, you know, our harm reduction program even provides food and clothing. It's not its primary focus, but even just access to food and access to clothing for some folks, even if they do have a place to live. And then I think of our LGBTQ populations, and people who are, yeah, having difficulty finding care that recognizes who they are and what they're going through in an appropriate way. I think people have good heart. I think people in our field, everyone in behavioral health, I would say from what I've met, wants to strive for that, but it's very difficult to find competent services, you know, culturally in a lot of ways, specifically within that lens. So I'd say that's one of the issues that we see. We're trying to provide that, but we're only like, you know, I got 2 therapists in that program. And the need is a lot greater, and there's a lot of stigma, as we all know here. I'm sure there's a lot of stigma. And that's another issue too, is breaking through those barriers. So creating opportunities for people to, that's why I think that the adventure activities, even when you do it experientially, it doesn't have to be climbing necessarily. It's just being outside, can be really helpful to engage people and then bring down a little bit of whatever, you know, stigma might be there for the family, or just for a community of people who might be like, maybe therapy isn't so bad. Right. And having a therapist lead a wellness activity and not make it about therapy, but right. Hope that answers your question. It's getting me thinking what other, because I know there's quite a bit, you know.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
We've been seeing a lot of housing issues as well. So,
Oh,
and I think there was a new report that just came out that New Mexico has the worst access to care of any state in the nation.
yeah. Access is difficult. There's a lot of different services that have tons of wait lists, you know. I think one of my biggest ones, I'll just share this, and I'm really proud. If you ever get a chance, maybe you all have had, they're down in Albuquerque, but it's a program, maybe you've heard of them, Serenity Mesa Adolescent Treatment Center. Yeah, they just opened a detox, maybe some of y'all know, and just that warms my heart, because we've just seen that as a problem too, is like, where do I take a youth to get detox? Because the hospital is an option, but it's not a trauma-informed, necessarily always trauma-informed environment for detox. And a lot of people are scared in the state to open these types of programs for adolescents, right? And that's a difficulty on a much more higher policy level. And yeah, so I'm really proud of them taking that step in that journey, which is it's no small feat to make that happen.
So
So we have
Tony,
to,
this is
yeah, go
so
ahead.
Tony, this is Betty Shover. Just for your information, David Burke, Executive Director of Serenity Mesa,
Oh yeah,
is the
Jennifer.
NAMI Albuquerque President.
Oh, great. Awesome. I'm
So
on other boards with her. I'm not surprised. Yeah,
no,
she's
this is David.
nonstop.
David,
She's great.
yeah, not the wife, but David.
Yeah.
I mean, I know she's also one of the founders, but David Burke is our NAMI Albuquerque President.
Yeah. Yeah, they're wonderful. Yeah. We partner with them, work with them once a week, and try to provide quarterly camps for their youth. And yeah, strongly believe in what they're doing. It's much needed.
Tony, I have a question for you, and thank you for the wonderful discussion about the service you provide. It's really eye-opening. For clients transitioning your programs, how do you transition them back into the world again and making sure they get the care they need? And how do you measure success in the work that you're doing?
Yeah. So kind of going back, each program has a little bit of an answer to that. I would say with our transitional living program, about 50% we're we're striving to have them stay with the therapist and our case manager when they leave. So
Yeah.
having like that a part of their discharge plan. About 50% that leave the program stay with the therapist they were assigned to for longer than 2 months. And some have stayed even longer. To us, that's success, because sometimes people are like, oh, on to the next thing.
Yeah.
It also shows us we're having more capacity to be able to provide that. And for that program, success can mean a lot of different things. Obviously, do we want them to have a life where they're fully on a path in recovery? Yes. We know that's not going to always be the reality. In a lot of cases, it's not. They're facing with a ton of different things. We don't know what home life is necessarily going to be when they go back. So success to us too is when they reach back out if they need help. And being able to ask for that help and coming back to us if they need it, even if it means, hey, I need something in the town I'm living in now, housing, we'll do it. And then our other programs, which is our therapeutic adventure program, we do pre and post surveys and we measure resiliency, and we're starting to do that now with our counseling program, which we don't have any data yet, or from our transitional living program, and that does show, and I wish I should have put it on these slides. We just got the data on Friday for the last 2 years. It just shows their resiliency, like just the outcomes. And so certain programs have more outcomes than others. And, we measure between gender, age, what kind of program, the difference between, it's really cool to see the difference between statistically significant change, like in the right direction, a positive direction, between youth in a detention center that go outside, which is John Paul Taylor. They go out, they do climbing, they go outside, they allow it, versus the youth at YDDC in Albuquerque that don't get to go outside, is immense. Like just getting them outside has great change in their outcomes and resiliency. So that's one way. Another one I mentioned before, I mean, to me, I worked really hard to get our MAT program, medication assisted treatment, Suboxone going, had to learn a ton, had to start hiring medical staff. I never knew anything about that field. So many podcasts I listened to about Suboxone, and just asking people, and I was really grateful for people to support us in wanting this. But knowing the goal was because when you do outreach and syringe exchange, and I've done outreach and not a ton, but every time I'd really gone out to do outreach, always somebody who's like, I can't get into a program. There's a wait list, da 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 da. It's a small window. And then that small window, now we can say we have a Suboxone program. We can help with the withdrawals. We can get you immediately seeing a doctor. Would you be willing to meet me tomorrow at the facility? Can I help you get there? And to me, knowing that 90 to 95% of those clients were once harm reduction clients is also a success for me. Yeah.
But speaking about syringes, Jackie has another question. Were the 1 million syringes distributed last year, did they all get used by users or were they sold off? Yikes, even 500,000 sounds like a huge number.
Yeah, that number, those needles are utilized. No one I've ever heard anyone selling them, because they can just get them free from us. And we pretty much, if they say I need 100, we give 100. Now we don't go to if they don't return 100, we still will give them what they think they need. And if they're asking for a lot, we're kind of trying to figure out what it is they're doing, and we're trying to make sure we get syringes back. So let me see if I answer that. Like the selling, that to our experience, that's never happened. Maybe a long time ago, I remember hearing some very vaguely, but it was kind of a silly thing to do, once again, because we offer it for free. They can come to the office and then we could do it mobily. We'd be happy that people are using clean syringes too. So making sure people are using, so we want to make sure people have plenty. And then we want to make sure we give them sharps containers, and we'll give them even big ones, like trash, big, 5-gallon size ones to even larger. and we'll give them those sharps containers if they have that much that they're using. And usually if there's that much being used, it's probably a house where there's multiple users. Did I answer the question? I think I'm missing one of the.
Yes, no, you answered my question, so thank you very much. This is
Yeah.
really interesting to hear about everything that's offered. I'm familiar somewhat with the Mountain Center when I
Oh,
worked
cool.
at the Department of Health
Oh,
and
yeah.
Jen Jevertson.
Oh,
So
cool.
anyway,
Nice.
but thank you. It was such an interesting program, and I'm going to have to bug off early because I've got another commitment.
Okay.
But thank you
Thanks,
so
Jackie.
much.
Nice to meet
Hi,
you.
everybody.
Yeah, take care.
Thanks.
Tony, interestingly enough, some of the early syringe exchangers were the pharmacists who just did it automatically. I mean, if you came in and said, I'm a diabetic and I need I need syringes, they just say, no questions asked. But that we're talking 30, 40 years ago, that's how it all began.
Yeah.
So they knew what was happening early on in the game.
Yeah.
But I have a question for you. With a lot of those clients who are still using syringes, do you actually try to get them tested for Hep C and B? And do you try to find out and try to get them on meds if they need it and get the follow-up healthcare that they need, and HIV obviously too as well?
Yeah, we offer testing, rapid testing. We don't offer treatment, but we
Okay.
offer the testing with a referral to treatment if they test positive or yeah, and they need support. And so we help with that. We also do syphilis testing now because that's actually more of a concern right now for
Yeah.
the Department of Health.
Yeah.
HIV is always a concern. We actually did have one test, somebody test once, and it was, then we let the health department know, and they can start doing any kind of prevention measures that if they feel like is needed. But then we can also talk to the individual and say, hey, well, there's resources and let's help you get to the hospital. And we were able to do that for that individual. We actually had to they were unhoused, but we actually got them a phone, got a at Walmart, like a little cheap phone, cell phone.
Right. Right.
So we can keep tabs with them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool.
Any other questions from the group?
I'm just gonna put my my email is right there. So if y'all have any questions, I'll just add, if there's any more, like something comes up, you're like, hey, I was wondering about this. Feel free to reach out to me. You can also visit our website. And on our kind of like our program, there's like a refer or how to make a referral or contact. And then there's a how to make referral, and it really lists all our programs and all the contacts. So if you know someone in the community, or there's a loved one that needs our services, that's a way to kind of direct or support them. But you can also reach out to me if you got a question on how to make a referral too.
Right. No, this was a wonderful discussion, Tony. It just illustrates that and that there are so many pockets of care and so many areas where resources are available. And what NAMI Santa Fe is trying to do is educate people about the resources that are available.
Oh, great.
And so you've helped fill in a huge spot. So thank you so much for this conversation. It
Yeah.
really illustrated how the breadth of what you guys are doing is just huge. And thank you.